FBI and Justice Department officials are working to arrange interviews with 6 Democratic lawmakers who appeared in a video advising service members not to follow illegal orders. The video enraged President Trump, who posted on social media last Friday that the lawmakers, all of whom have previously served in the military or U.S. intelligence, should be arrested. He also accused them of seditious behavior punishable by death. The 4 members of the House who appeared in the video, Jason Crow, Chris DeLuzio, Maggie Goodlander, and Chrissy Houlihan, released a joint statement yesterday accusing the president of using the FBI as a tool to intimidate and harass members of Congress. They also defend their actions, writing, "No amount of intimidation or harassment will ever stop us from doing our jobs and honoring our Constitution." This comes as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is accelerating his investigation into Senator Mark Kelly, now directing the U.S. Navy to launch a review of the lawmaker. In a memo posted to social media, Hegseth orders the Secretary of the Navy to look into what he calls, quote, potentially unlawful comments made by Kelly. Hegseth then asked the Navy Secretary, a former businessman with no prior military experience, to report any findings by no later than December 10th. Kelly's comments in question were, of course, part of that message to service members, reminding them of their obligation simply to refuse illegal orders. And as the defense secretary escalates his investigation into Kelly, he is also ramping up his personal attacks against the senator. Hegseth took to social media yesterday to mock the decorated Navy veteran who flew nearly 40 combat missions in Operation Desert Storm over a picture of his uniform, taunting him with the prospect of uniform inspection if necessary, if he were recalled to active duty. Something you pointed out, his uniform limber might be perfectly fine. It might be just the mirror, but whatever. Pete Hegseth has a thing with his picture of his uniform.
It is. Now, there are even some Republican senators who are coming to their colleague Mark Kelly's defense. Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska wrote on social media that Kelly, quote, valiantly served our country and, quote, to accuse him and other lawmakers of treason and sedition for rightfully pointing out that service members can refuse illegal orders is reckless and flat out wrong. Murkowski added, the Department of Defense and FBI surely have more important priorities than this frivolous investigation. And then also Senator John Curtis of Utah wrote this in part, I know Kelly as someone whose career has been defined by service. His record as a combat naval aviator and NASA astronaut reflects his example of the discipline and dedication that are important for success. So there are a couple things here, David Ignatius. This is, again, part of President Trump's retribution campaign, and perhaps he gave a direct order, perhaps he didn't, but those around him take their cues from his angry Truth Social posts, and they go after his political foes. We've seen some real problems with that, with James Comey and Letitia James recently, but now it seems like Mark Kelly and perhaps some other Democrats, hence FBI investigation, might be in some trouble. That is dangerous, to be sure. And we should also note that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of, as he likes to put it, War, is concerned with uniform violations, while it's one of his deputies, Dan Driscoll, who's actually over in Europe negotiating the hard stuff with Ukraine and Russia to try to bring an end to that war. And we'll get into details there in a moment. But it just goes to show you, frankly, as was Lisa Murkowski just said, a lack of seriousness from the Pentagon's boss.
So, Jonathan, just to unpack this briefly, the reason that these 6 members of Congress felt that it was appropriate, maybe necessary, to briefly remind members of the military that they should not obey illegal orders is because the Trump administration, Secretary Hegseth, back in February, essentially moved to neuter the legal advice at the Pentagon that commanders depend on. They fired the top 3 judge adjutant generals who head the military lawyer group, which had the effect of intimidating all of the lawyers in the Pentagon. So there was nobody left to say to a commander, who asked for legal advice, I believe that order is illegal. I believe that, you need to look carefully at that, General or Admiral. Those people are gone. So quite properly to me, these members of Congress who have extensive, admirable military service said that the simplest thing possible, which is people in the military swear an oath to the Constitution, not to a president, and they have an obligation not to obey orders that are illegal. There were no lawyers left to give them that advice at the Pentagon. If there had been, I'm sure they wouldn't have made the statement. So that's what lies in the background of this. And I think simple truth is people in the military owe thanks to lawmakers who care enough about proper functioning of the military to speak out and say, you don't obey illegal orders, which is simple. The idea that that somehow is seditious, reminding people of what the Constitution says is sedition. Well, how do we get to that point?
Yeah. Well, we get to that point, obviously, because some people in the administration may think that there may be orders that may be coming that are not legal. I don't know. That's the only conclusion they can lead us to, but it's not going to work, Sam Stein, and it's not going to work, I've got to say, because just the political stupidity, the political negligence of talking about the execution of a war hero, a highly decorated fighter pilot, a revered astronaut, the husband of a nearly assassinated member of the United States House, somebody who's respected and loved by other members of the United States Senate, Mark Kelly. You're talking about putting this guy out front. And Mark Kelly, not to undermine Mark Kelly's political skills, but all you're asking Mark Kelly to do here is to defend his position that men and women in the military need to follow orders, and that men and women in the military need to uphold their oath. That's all this is. This is Civics 101. So when he says you don't have to obey an illegal order, again, my only correction would be that's not optional. You can't obey an illegal order and uphold your oath, or like these other people I've been talking about this morning, they're going to find themselves on the witness stand defending themselves if they do follow illegal orders. And again, so the political negligence of Republicans for somehow putting these war heroes up front to simply defend the concept that our soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines and members of the Coast Guard should uphold their oath to God and country seems to me a very short-sighted and stupid political play by Republicans and members of the Trump administration.
Yeah, 100%. Couple things to remember. For many of these cabinet members, including Hegseth, they were asked during their confirmation hearings, would you execute an illegal order? So this concept that this is some sort of grand, weird conspiracy that Trump might issue these executive orders or orders that were illegal is not far-fetched. I mean, this is a hypothetical that's been engaged by Hegseth and others already. Secondarily, by elevating Mark Kelly, by doing this, you were just elevating Mark Kelly, who frankly has been through tragedy, doesn't deserve to have death, the threat of execution leveled at him by the President of the United States, but also, if we're being honest, will surely benefit politically from this. All he has to do is put on his bomber jacket, go on TV and say, I'm not going to be, intimidated by this guy. I just spoke the truth. And I'm sure the fundraising money is going to come pouring in, and frankly, rightfully so. I will just say, the other thing, though, the third element of here is, and maybe I'm alone in interpreting it this way, but Jonathan Lemire was right. Like the contrast, the split screen of a defense secretary who has to be engaged in partisan Twitter warfare while his deputy is over there negotiating with the Russians. The incredible insecurity that seems to come off from Hegseth in this whole episode, demanding that the Secretary of the Navy get back to him by December 10th to decide whether Mark Kelly should be court-martialed. It's all like theater. And it all seems so desperate. Yeah. And who knows if he's doing this because Trump's demanding it of him. But it's not a great look for Pete Hegseth either.
No, regardless of why he's doing it, it's a very bad look. But Mika, again, you look at what Mark Kelly is saying, and it is obvious. I will go back again to the Democrats, and I will say also, members of the media have play this a little too much down the middle. This is not something you play down the middle. This is where you give the facts. And if you're a broadcast, a network, if you are a newspaper, you give the facts. And the facts are very clear. This is not a, tell me, Mark Kelly, did what you do? No. The fact is, Mark Kelly said, you can't do things illegal. So the media doesn't need to be playing sort of this both sidesism routine. Right. There is no both sides of this. They need to clarify this much more clearly than they have thus far. That's number one. But number two, this is a straightforward problem, and there's not ambiguity. Again, it's one of the reasons I was surprised Alyssa Slotkin couldn't answer the basic question that Mark Kelly did answer. If a Democrat is asked, why would you ever think about such a thing? You would say, well, first of all, in 2016, when Donald Trump was talking to Bret Baier at a presidential debate, and Bret Baier said what you're asking troops to do would be illegal. And Donald Trump said they would still follow my orders. That's what strong leadership's about, believe me. So Donald Trump said in 2016, in effect, that strong leadership means they will follow illegal orders. That's from the beginning. When I was talking about the Federalist Papers being the basis of this country. Well, that goes back to a state of mind from the very beginning of his campaign and his presidency. And as I've said several times before, when you have the President of the United States saying on Air Force One that he's going to send troops into other cities for crime control, and there's nothing the courts can do about it, that also would be an illegal order. When you have the President of the United States at Quantico in front of military leadership saying, we're going to use the military on American cities and on Americans in these dangerous cities as a training ground, that is an illegal order. Of course, the United States Supreme Court, again, as we said before, needs to stop wallowing in ambiguity and simply state the law and simply put an end to these dangerous debates that are going on right now.
Yeah, and also I think I think it's time for the American people, and definitely members of the media, some who cover Trump in a positive light and sort of take his side here. It's just a fact that there was this sort of idea that, oh, he doesn't mean it. You could ask them, you could ask people, Trump supporters, oh, what do you think of the tariffs? He doesn't mean it. It's not really going to happen. So whether it's tariffs or deportations or retribution, I think we're at the point now where you can safely say you have now evidence that shows when he says something, he means it. And you can't fall back on that anymore. You have to work with what he says. Joe, that's something some people have had to have a process of learning.
Yeah, and Mika, you also have, again, you have some of these networks that really are acting like their viewers are idiots.
I know.
Acting like they can't read the word illegal. Acting like they can wish away the word illegal. I've just seen dopes go on there and screaming and yelling and waving their arms and acting as if the word illegal is not in there. Unfortunately, I saw a CIA spokesperson do the same thing last night, suggesting that Alyssa Slotkin had said the CIA was issuing illegal orders and CIA operatives should ignore them. No, that's a lie.
Right.
That's a lie. There's no ambiguity there. That's not what she said. She said, in the future, if you receive illegal orders, you are duty bound by the oath that you have taken not to follow. And yet, the insulting of these viewers, the insulting of the American people by pretending that the word illegal is not in that Democratic statement, again, it's just going to end up hurting Republicans in the end. This whole thing, I know it's so shocking to a lot of people, but it just is going to end up helping Mark Kelly, helping these veterans, helping these former CIA analysts, It's going to help them, and it's going to end up hurting this Republican Party that keeps engaging in political self-harm because they will not stand up and say not only the right thing,